make a move and the bunny gets it.
I said, put the bunny back in the box. Why couldn't you put the bunny back in the box?
It's showtime.
Psychically, I'm very well endowed.
I wanna know what you're thinking. There are some things you can't hide. I wanna know what you're feeling. Tell me what's on your mind.
Hello, this is Cooper from Telepathic Bunny Comics. Kind of didn't want to do this one today, but I've learned that when God kind of, brings something to you multiple times, in multiple situations, and multiple angles, that it just works better if you just give in and do what he wants you to do. There are a few things in this life that I can call myself a man of experience with, or somebody with some kind of expertise, with the hours necessary to have some kind of like experience with. And this is one of the things that I can speak about with some sort of clarity and some sort of perspective. So, here lately, some people I respect or even friends with have lost people in their lives. And I've lost a lady at church that was around when I was a teenager. Didn't even know she was sick, but she evidently had one of those supercharged cancers that are not supposed to be happening. But we've lost our whole entire elder contingent to these mysterious heart ailments, strokes, and cancers because they had to get the jab. They told them it was going to affect them if they didn't. So it's neither here nor there, but there's been a lot of loss here lately. And it's a tough situation. It's a tough thing to talk about. But basically, every once in a while, your world ends. Every once in a while, you have a moment where there's no going back to what happened before. And knocks you back to zero with a brand new situation. And a matter of just moments, you're basically, no matter where you are, where you go, here you are. You have to carry it around with you. Hold on a second. Got a comment. Cooper. Keep on moving forward, brother. Yeah. That's what I'm trying to do. That's what I'm trying to do. Anyway. But I'm not the kind of person who trades on this. Not the kind of person that does this for clout. Believe me, I'm in the evangelical circles, if you have a testimony, the world's your oyster. They'll book you at church services. They'll throw money at you. You can gain some kind of notoriety. And that siren call has been there for me. If you have it's almost gruesome if you have like a testimony that's like shocking enough or horrific enough. It's almost like it's torture porn in a way to church people. But the reason why I never took advantage of that is because everybody that does that always gets to the conclusion of like, but I'm doing so good right now. They reach a point in their life of where they have overcome, and I never felt I got to the overcome part, and I made plenty of mistakes along the way. And I'm not a kind of person that'll be disingenuous about my mistakes. But tonight, I'm going to talk about some of them. Anyway. Got another comment over here. My friend Paul thought the world ended in 2012. It didn't matter speaking. He's passed away. Still sucks. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Let me give a little background about me. 73 is when I was born. First day of July. I am a Gen X. Firmly in the middle of Gen X. And that means that there are certain things that are true of me that are true of Gen Xers. And I was born to the scrawniest woman you've ever met. She wasn't slender, she was scrawny. Her best friend made sure people knew that, but she just like, she wasn't willowy, she wasn't like, she didn't have like gracefulness about her. She was just scrawny, and she was made fun of a lot of her life. And but she had a sense of humor, a wicked sense of humor, and but she also had a lead foot. So, and she ran across a buttoned up young man. Her name was Carolyn, and she ran across a buttoned up young man who looks a lot like me. Named James Albert, and she told him basically, get me out of this house. Her father had remarried to a younger woman, and my mother was going out of her head about it, and so she said, get me out of this house or leave me forever. And so he married her to get her out of the house, and their relationship, that's pretty much the way their relationship ran. They were very passionate people, and they were either like loving on each other enough to make you go ew, or it was Katie barred the door. One of them had to leave because there was going to be violence. But they were a very passionate couple, and they had the oldest son, Randall. Ferris, actually, is his first name, Ferris. And then they had a girl who didn't make it 23 hours named Nina. And that broke their hearts for a while. So it was about 2 or 3 years later before they had a white-haired little young man named Jonathan. And he was their baby for about around 2 years. And then my mama had the most difficult pregnancy of all the pregnancies she's had. She had trouble keeping all the babies to term, but this one was really, really tough on her. She took medication to keep the baby and caused the birth defect that she never forgave herself for. But then I popped out when the very moment I became a viable to be born. Boom, keeping me in was the problem, not delivering me. But then less than 11 months later, a little girl came along. And so me and my sister, 1 month a year, are the same age. And that freaks people out. But evidently, a woman is, after birthing a child, is at her most fertile. And nobody told it to my parents. And so my mother's like, "You'll never touch me again," That's pretty much her. But it was, my father was a very, very devout Christian. He was the Christian that people, that you read in books, the guy who took care of everybody, who was a man of his word, did everything for other people, never asked for anything in return. That was my father. He was that kind of person. And my mother, she was the kind of person that was light up a room. And so they just had a really strange chemistry to them. And this is the family. Right there. It was a good family. We had growing up, my parents had had a really strange kind of situation where my mother stayed on second shift and my father worked third, so he could be home with the kids, do the kicking and cleaning, and do the visitation for the church and things like that. And I realized later that my mother wasn't very comfortable being a mother. Her mother was sick most of her life, and I don't think she mothered very well. And that's a weird thing to realize later, but she loved us. I mean, there was plenty of love there, but I don't know that she was ever comfortable, being motherly, And it's a strange thing to kind of reflect upon, but that was pretty much her. Now, she could drive a stick shift like a NASCAR racer. The people in the neighborhood, the boys in the neighborhood, all wanted her to spin out. That's that. They saw Carolyn, they're like, "Spin out, spin, 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 spin," and she would lay a black mark. She could lay a black mark. Didn't matter the car. She could do it. They had that gift, and she wrecked cars. My father got a Dodge Colt. It was new to them, at least, and the very first day they went delivering papers, which was the second job, she knocked the mirror off on a mailbox. She was nutty that way. She was just batty. I've got that. I definitely get my batty, self from her. But I was really close to my brother Jonathan. We were like friends. Hold on a second. We're taught to drive with gears by default over here. The DVLA even allowed me to have a driver's license. Oh, wow. Okay. Gotcha. I can't really drive a stick that well. But either way, so I didn't get that from Mom. Got the lead foot from her, but I didn't get the stick shift from her. But I was real close to my brother Jonathan. He was a really unique kid. He when I was growing up later, I kept running into people who said he was their only friend. It seemed like I kept running into these people, and they said, "Well, your brother is my only friend growing up." And how a young boy could be so many people's only friend, I'm not really entirely sure how I could do that. But I ran into about 4 or 5 that said that. But he was a great brother for me and my sister. My oldest brother didn't really like the fact he had younger siblings. Every once in a while, he'd look at us with disdain. And that's about all we got from him. But you know, it is what it is. We're starting to try to be better brothers now, but it's been a tough road. But I'm only child I bought myself for the TV remote. There you go. Now this next part, I've had. I once described PTSD to a Vietnam veteran, and he's like, "Well, how do you know what PTSD is?" And so, yeah, I suck at manual. Yeah, gotcha. But he's like, "How do you know what PTSD is?" And I thought that his brother had told him. You know, I'm friends with his brother, and it was like, I thought your brother would have told you, but he didn't. But this next part is pretty difficult, so bear with me. In June the 12th, 1982, the family took one of our typical trips to go see the grandparents in a next 2 counties over. And if you can't find them, grind them. Yeah, that's absolutely right. So we went on a trip to the grandparents, and I'm the only one that made it back. And evidently, there was a gentleman who was partying with his buddies. He was evidently a wealthy son of a wealthy widow, and was basically partying every chance he got. And on this occasion, they had been partying the night before, and they decided that they needed to go get some refills. There's an ABC store on the road that we were traveling down. And if you know anything about cars, we had a Datsun, which later became Nissan, one of the Japanese subcompacts. And he had a LTD station wagon. Now, if you know what a LTD station wagon is, it's pretty much a tank. So, no, we didn't have much of a chance. Anyway, so it was a really, we were heading home from a full day. It was a really great day for me. My mom called me Mighty Mouse because I was like running some errands and some stuff, and I was just like scampering up and scampering down some things. Felt like a superhero. That might have something to do with my obsession with superheroes now, but so just a wonderful day. We got into the station wagon, and the person who got in last was usually the one in the cargo area, and I usually wind up in the cargo area. This time I got a window seat, and then for some reason I switched with my sister. And out of all the things that haunt me, that's one thing that does to this day. But we were heading into town, and the worst, we call them gully washers, where the rain just like drops, you know, like a monsoon for just a period of maybe 15, 20 minutes. And one just dropped right on top of us, which has probably had something to do with what happened next. But there's a road that they later expanded because of the accidents that kept happening on it. It was at the bottom of the hill in front of a graveyard. One of the creepiest graveyards to this day that I can ever recall. And I've always wondered if there's something supernatural about that intersection there. But we didn't see them until we got close to the bottom because of the tree overhang, which they later cut back. But he was in our lane, and what transpired next? Less than half an hour later, I was in the emergency room with a cracked elbow. Miraculously, only a cracked elbow. And I was being informed that my parents were gone because the nurses were getting upset that I kept asking after them. So this doctor, rather than wait for my relatives, because the nurses were getting upset, decided to sit down and tell me the news. And it's, how do you break that to news to someone? Hey, by the way, you're an orphan. You no longer have parents. Well, my parents had evidently had a precognition or whatever that they weren't going to live to see us reach adulthood. And so her closest sister and her husband had agreed months before to take us in if anything happened to my parents. And so I went home with them that night. And so they got a traumatized child. My sister had severe head injuries, later became functionally mentally handicapped. My brother Randall was folded up like a lawn chair, and had his jaw broken in 6 places, and can't remember his childhood very well. He's pretty scrambled. But then my brother Jonathan, his head injury was more severe. And that was the 12th. But by the 21st, I was being told in the middle of the morning, my uncle was telling me that he was gone. That they, later I found out that they had just pulled the plug. They were told he was never going to recover. He was going to be a vegetable. I kept hearing them calling him a vegetable, and I thought, what, a carrot, a rutabaga, you know, turnip, you know. And then pain and suffering, I kept getting told by my relatives that this was God's will. We can't question it. This was God's will. And so I grew a very healthy anger and rage at God. I didn't get mad at the guy who hit him or anything like that, even though he laughed at me when I hopped out of the car and asked for help, or screamed for help. They're having a good old time over there. So it's kind of ironic, so many people around me drink a lot of alcohol these days, but I've never been able to drink. Well, anyway, I've never got mad at him. I just got mad at God. So I never left church, though. I was a good little church boy. My aunt, she basically was backseat driver when it came to raising kids. She had always saw my mother raising us, and And she always had that moment like, well, if they were my kids, and so, well, we became her kids. And so she basically experimented on me because I was the only one that made it home. And because she didn't understand how to like encourage a child, she thought she had to break me out of my bad habits. And my bad habits were watching television, dreaming too much, being too flighty, and being a kid. Basically, that was my biggest problem, was being a kid, and I was too finicky. So she thought she had to force me to eat food, and so I would sit at the table for sometimes 2 hours. I think 2 hours was my record before I find a way to choke down the cold food. Now I can't eat certain foods. I smell them; they make me gag. I have a fixed. It's called a fixed aversion, so it didn't really work out in the end. But she did the best she could. She didn't know any better. And but my uncle, actually, he was a mechanical genius, found a way to lock the television so I couldn't watch cartoons. He basically had a switch, lock switch from a dispenser machine, and he found a way to rig that to the power unit on the television, and he would lock it, and so you couldn't turn the television on. And that's how they managed to keep me down to. I went from watching TV every day, being raised by pop culture like a good Gen X kid. You know, Dukes of Hazzard, Incredible Hulk, Wonder Woman, you know, all these, Chips, Emergency, you know, That's Incredible was one of the shows. Believe It or Not was one of the shows. Probably why I'm into cryptids and conspiracies now. But, you know, or that's, what else? Well, it doesn't matter. But anyway, I went from watching stuff like that to nothing. To absolutely nothing but 2 cartoons on the weekend. Chips, that's going back a bit. Yeah. Yeah, I remember them new Saturday morning cartoons, right? Let's hear it for the old rabbit. Hey, Ike. It's a little tough today, man. A little serious today. Anyway, but she basically handed me books, and she said, well, read these. And so I started reading. And I was a voracious reader, mainly because I was unable to deal with what had happened to me. And I went to they took me to several psychologists and things like that. I think they were court-ordered psychologists. And they were unable to crack it, crack me. They couldn't figure out why I was so detached from my grief. They couldn't get me to break down. They couldn't get me to cry. They couldn't get me to sleep. At one point, they gave me Valium, and I fought the Valium so hard that they had stopped giving me Valium because I was sleeping less with Valium. And I was taking a dose that would probably put, 200-pound man down. And I was like maybe 80 pounds soaking wet. And they couldn't get me to sleep. And yeah, if you don't cry, it means you're not sad. Shaking my head. Yep. Well, what they didn't understand was I couldn't access it. I couldn't deal with it. From the moment that I was told I was an orphan for the rest of my life, I had this coldness that came over me. And immediately, it's like I had to function. I had to function. So I shoved it down and put it away. And that's a decision that I paid for the rest of my life. every once in a while, a commercial will hit me sideways. Every once in a while, a situation that I'll see and across the mall, or a moment in a movie or something like that, and I'll bawl like Niagara Falls. And I can't control it. I have no control over it. That's leaking out of me. And so I tell people that grieve while you can, because it will come out of you in one way or another. And the more you can get out at the front of it, the better, the less that you'll have to deal with it down the road. And so I tell people, don't let anybody tell you not to mourn. Don't let anybody shorten your mourning time, because it makes you make them uncomfortable. I learned a lot about how people deal with grieving people. And it's not pretty, especially Christians. Christians are the worst. Okay? Christians are the worst comforters. And they're supposed to be the best. I mean, according to Christ, if you want to be Christ-like, Christ comforted the people that mourned. But Christians suck at it. They really do. And my family was even worse. I was bullied as a teenager. That would be the closest trauma I guess I've experienced. And we're not competing. We're not competing. This is not a competition. This is just me telling. Your trauma is just as intense as my trauma. I don't look at it that way. But anyway, but yeah, that whole this was God's will, that bullshit, that sent me back a long ways, because that's pretty much the equivalent of you saying that God came down from his heaven, put a gun to your parents' head, and blew their brains out. So God's will is for my parents to die in front of me. God's a dick. Okay? But that's one of the big, I hear it all the time when I hear somebody telling somebody that's mourning, oh, this is God's will, this is God's will. It makes me want to smack them. I swear. I have come close to smacking people in a funeral line before. When I hear that, the worst thing you can ever tell somebody, okay, God has a permissive will, and then he has his overarching will, okay? His permissive will was Eden. That's what he wanted, was Eden, paradise. But he had to give us our free will. And what we've done with the world, the mess that we're in, is because of our free will. But see, nobody ever explained that to me. And so by the time I got to be a teenager, I hated God just as bad as an atheist. I was worse than an atheist. I believed in him, and I hated his guts. That's what I dealt with. Some of my bullies are junkies now, oddly enough. Train spotting, right? You think I'd be best at that. I know exactly what you're saying about that fact. Yeah, they're awkward. They're so awkward, but it's almost like you have something that they might catch. And so they're like stiff, they're like, oh, I gotta hit you with my platitudes. When all they gotta say is like, I am sorry for your loss and I'll be praying for you, and mean it. That's the best thing you can do. But they just say the most awkward, awful things, and just horrible things. And, but, here I was a teenager. Here I was in church every time the doors open. Sometimes I open the doors. I got a cat key. My dad was super Christian. Super Christian. He read us the Bible every night. And so I memorized the Bible because I'm a little Asperger's boy. And I love storytelling. I love stories. And the Bible's just the greatest collection of stories ever. And so I would read the children's Bible even when he wasn't reading it to us. I would sneak the children's Bible and read it. And so by the time I got to be a teenager, I was better informed about the Bible. I could quote you more Bible than most of the people that I was around, which shows the lack of discipleship that in Baptist churches, unfortunately. It doesn't speak well of them. Angry at God. I think most of us have been there, yeah. Well, okay. So my idea of God, I pretty much figured this out lately, but my idea of God was Zeus. Okay. I believe God was just this distance, cold-hearted, butthead on his throne in heaven. And if you dared say anything to him, they would strike you dead. And they would always say that, that man, he cursed God. And next thing you know, he was like a pair of smoking sneakers, from a lightning bolt. I grew up listening to hearing stories like that. And so I got in my head that if I made God mad enough at me, he would strike me dead. Suicide by God, basically. And so I got to the end of my rope one night. There was a man in my life that I grew up with that I tried to make into a father figure, and he didn't want to be a father figure for anybody. It wasn't my uncle. My uncle didn't have that ability to do that, so I was starving for a father figure. I had one. I had the one of the best fathers you can imagine. I mean, he was Ward Cleaver. I went from Ward Cleaver to a emotionally distant, mostly stunted individual who couldn't interact with me. And so the first person I ran into that I wanted to be anything like, I tried to make him into my father figure, and he wasn't ready for that. He had a son of his own, and he just wasn't able to do that. And so I basically stalked him, trying to get him to be something he was not. Out of my own grief, I know now that it was just out of grief and everything like that. And so I try to give myself a break. But, one night he couldn't be there. He was going on a trip, and he was going to be gone for a few days. And so that gaping maw of pain, where my parents should be, was about to eat me alive. And so I decided to end it all. But since I didn't have a gun or didn't have access to pills and cutting my wrists just where it wasn't appealing, I thought I'd make God mad enough to strike me dead. So I set out and tried to get him to strike me dead. And like that was an option. That shows how screwed up I was. And I was a church kid, okay? All right. And I couldn't get him to strike me dead, no matter what I said to him. And I said the most horrific, horrible things I could conceive of. And then I got to the end of it, and it's like this little voice said to me, okay, you done? Are you done? And I realized I was done. I realized I was totally done. And my sinner's prayer, if you want to call it that, was, Lord, save me or kill me. That's how miserable I was, okay? And he decided to save me. So I've had that in my life ever since, 22 years old. And it's helped me deal with a lot of things. But anytime I tell this story to anybody, I had this one girl who, every time she saw me, she would burst into tears. Every time she saw me, and that was a little awkward, I'd make her cry every time I just walked into the room. So, and so I didn't share the story that often, but I kept getting called upon, people that knew the story, and they wanted me to, tell the story or whatever. And They wanted me to put like this fake ending on it that I somehow reached the place of comfort or reached the place of overcoming or something like that. But I've never gotten there. I've never gotten there. And I never will. So that was pretty much the end of my world. And I've learned some things. No matter how bad things may get, if you're gone, every chance of things turning around is lost forever, right? Right. As long as you got breath, you got hope. But the reason I want to do this show tonight is I learned some things. I learned some things from, I might as well tell you. My aunt, the aunt that took me in, that taught me to read, that was like my second mother. She passed away 4 years later from a heart problem. And my uncle kind of like, he didn't openly blame me for it, but I always felt that he did blame me on some level, maybe subconsciously. That the stress of dealing with me and the fact I wasn't fitting in at school and I was being bullied every day, and I never could like feel comfortable in my own skin, and that always weighed on her. It was 1986. The Challenger shuttle had just blown up, and she disappeared. I came home one day and she was gone, and I was sent to stay with some people from church, and I wasn't told that she had a heart attack and that she was in there. And she called. My uncle basically unlocked the TV. It's like a little addict allowed to have its drug of choice. I was in the middle of a TV marathon, and she calls the house. And I didn't know that she'd already died once by then. And I kind of blew her off, thinking I'd see her again. And that's the last time I talked to her. And if somebody had told me that she was in bad shape as she was, then maybe a few days later when they told me that she had passed, I could have handled it better. But that was like the one thing too far. And when you get hit like that over and over again in a short amount of time, it's hard to roll with the punches. It's hard. And no matter, yep. And the reason why I don't do this often is because, like I said, I was not taught, or I was told to be strong. I wasn't allowed to weep. I wasn't allowed to grieve. I had to get on with things, and so I did. And it still comes out of me all the time in different ways. And seeing a lot of these people in pain right now, it's brought a lot of this back. Now, I'm not making this about me. I'm just saying there's some things that I learned to help me deal. First of all, as long as I remember them, as long as I hold them in my heart, have the memories of them, as long as there's things that I see in myself that remind me of them. My mother's hair is the reason I dyed my beard red. It used to be red naturally, but it went gray. But I started dyeing it back, and I decided to go for my mother's shade. Shade of orange. It was orange. It wasn't really red. It was orange. But so that's what I aim for when I dye my beard. But I see my father's facial features. I his ability to recall information that was second to none. The man could keep so many things in his head at one time. He's a polymath. In that he drew blueprints without any training for the church that I grew up in. He also wrote a hymn that my brother found later. And he was just a incredibly intelligent individual. Heck of a father. And so if anybody thinks that I have any kind of intelligence, that's pretty much from him. My mother had musical ability. My mother could hear anybody singing and she'd harmonize just like that. And I've got that ability. I can listen to a song once or twice and be able to pretty much harmonize or sing with it. And that came from her. And my brother Jonathan, who, was just one of the best humans I ever met. I knew this was going to happen when I had Jonathan. The mascot for Telepathic Bunny is Cotton Top. And on Cotton Top's lapel is JMC. And that's his initials. And so whatever Telepathic Bunny Comics becomes, it's always going to have Cotton Top is always going to be his mascot. And he's always going to have the JMC. Because Cotton Top was his nickname, as you can see. He had white hair. That's him right there. And that's his nickname, Cotton Top. My Aunt Elizabeth called him that. But, my sister, she was mentally handicapped, but she's got some, like most head injury people, she's got some adult things. And the thing that's adult about her is her sense of humor. And so you got this sweet, lovely person who everybody just adores. And every once in a while, she'll just zing the crap out of you. And it's like, oddly enough, her sense of humor, I'm not the only one. I'm not crazy when I say this. It reminds a lot of people of Mom. And so she's had a self-referential kind of ironic sense of humor that's very unique, very interesting, very nuanced. And Aniela's got that sense of humor, even though the head injury set her back to zero. She had to learn to walk again and all this other stuff. And so how does she still have Mom's sense of humor? The genetic code, man, there's more to that genetic code than we even know. I refuse to be an adult. Being an adult sucks. Yeah, it sure does. It sure does. Right. So if I can tell anybody, first of all, what happened to you was not God's will. God's will was Eden. But he's going to use this. He's going to use what happened to you for your good. He's going to take what mankind has done to this world, and he's going to make something good out of it. And that's what he does. He finds a way to work things for your good. That's biblical. It's a Bible verse. Also, so if anybody tells you it's God's will, it's not. His will was Eden. But he is going to allow some things to happen to get you to where he needs you to go to be. And if you never have any bad things happen in your life, you're not going to be anyone worth knowing. You know, I've known a lot of people in my life that had nothing bad ever happen to them, and they were pretty much miserable human beings. And selfish and self-centered with no perspective on life. So if I would rather be that kind of person that doesn't ever have anything bad happen to me, rather than the person that has so much character. I would really like to be a person with less character and more silver spoon, okay? But here I am. Also, as long as you remember that person, as long as there's parts of them in you, they're still alive on this earth. They're still walking the earth, they're still with you. And you'll catch glimpses of them, you know, out of the corner of your eye, you'll catch glimpses of them. I don't think they go far. I think the Bible talks about a cloud of witnesses, and I think they root us on, you know, from the sidelines. And I believe that with all my heart. And also, if another thing I learned, it's it is okay. It's okay to grieve. And grieve as long as you need to. And don't let anybody's uncomfortable, you know, discomfort cause you to truncate your own grief, to cut it off early. Don't let anybody tell you to be strong, you know, be stronger, you know. And especially if you're a parent, or especially if you're somebody raising kids, let them see it. Let them see it. Because they've got to learn. Grieving is a acquired skill. Grieving is not something that occurs naturally. Everybody has to find their way. And grief is not one size fits all. I thought that I was kind of like an expert, you know. I thought that I was kind of like I had it handled, and then my little pup died. And she's totally rocked my world. And I realized that I still I'm not a Jedi master when it comes to grief. I'm just not, you know, as much as I'd like to be. And because of that, I can say to you that it doesn't matter how many years pass. It doesn't matter how many days pass. It doesn't matter. You're still going to grieve. It's still there. Those patterns are just locked into your brain. But the more you grieve, the more that person was important to you. And so take that as a compliment to them, that they were so hard to get over that you can't get over them. That just means that they just were so awesome that that you're not able to, you know, shuffle them off to the side, put them on the back burner. You know, some people are never going to leave you. They're never, the grief is always going to be like stalking you, ready to hit you when you watch a stupid Christmas commercial or something like that. And so know that that's okay. There's no timetable. You know. This happened in 1982. And there's still some Father's Days. There's still some one of my security questions is name your favorite holiday, and my security answer is none. I had a friend one time that I grew up with, and I asked him for the security question because I couldn't get by. I forgot, and he read it back to me. He's like, "Damn." But I've gotten to where I'm okay with Christmas. Christmas is pretty good, you know. I've gotten to where I'm better on Christmas. But there's gonna be times, man, that Mother's Day, you know, Valentine's Day, all these holidays and all these occasions and things like that are just gonna be tough. You know, they're just gonna be tough. There's no way around it. And if you learn anything from me, 45 years down the road, I guess not 45 years, but 43 years. 43 years. something like that. Anyway, all these years later, I've lived without them almost 4 times as long as I lived with them. And I still see them in myself every day. I still catch myself doing things, saying things, and acting in ways that remind me of them. And it's never going to go away. And eventually, you'll find solace in that. Eventually, you'll get to where you don't cry as often, and eventually, you'll get to where there'll be moments of sweetness where you remember them and with laughter, with the joy that they gave you. And you can survive anything. You can survive anything. There's things that you don't want to survive from. There's things that you really wish you didn't have to survive from. But you can survive. And you will. And moving on doesn't mean that you love them less. Moving on means that you still got a ways to go. You still have a journey to take. And it just so happens that they're not physically with you anymore. But that doesn't mean that they're not there in spirit. Doesn't mean they're not there with all the power and the strength that they gave you while they were alive. And you'll find it. You will get past this moment, and you will survive. And you either get busy living or you get busy dying. It's a binary choice. And so, I didn't want to do this today, but I've got a bigger boss man who rules my life, who thought it was time for me to do this, and dragged me kicking and screaming to do this tonight. So hopefully this will be used from other people who are in pain right now, and maybe give them some solace, maybe give them some tools, maybe make them feel better about their situation. I don't know, but I'm just being obedient. You know, the boss man tells you to do something, you do it. But anyway, thank you to Crow and Wookie and I Like Ike for hanging out with me tonight. And I will see you guys Thursday night. I'm going to do another character autopsy, and this one's going to be Frank Castle. I've already decided that one. So, if you like The Punisher, and you want to hear a breakdown of The Punisher by a writer in a writer's way, then show up on Thursday night at 6 o'clock, and I'll be here breaking down Punisher, and we'll see you guys then. Thank you very much for enduring this, and then hopefully I've lit a candle in the darkness for somebody. But y'all have a good night, and follow the White Rabbit. Like and subscribe if this helped you any. And I'll talk to you next time. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.